stopping the toad now.
Welcome to the memorial art and music page of the famous 20th century abstract expressionist, folk musician, actor, political rights activist, and clown. Robbo was born in 1921 at the age of 18. He promptly received a scholarship to Yale for being such a brilliant painter at such an early age. However, Robbo failed to receive his painting degree from Yale over the controversy caused by his flagrant cross-dressing and activities in the occult. Robbo decided to begin again, and in the late 20s toured the country with the likes of Woody Guthrie and Robert Johnson. But fortune was not on his side. When Black Friday came in 1929, Robbo was left penniless, starving, and hopelessly alcoholic. One morning, as Robbo lay in bed about to finish off the last of the scotch right out of the bottle, he had a thought. I'll move to Hollywood and become a clown. And so he did, and the rest was history. Robbo became a huge success as the new Hollywood darling, starring in such award-winning films as Gone with the Clown, A Clown Tripped Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Breakfast at Clowns, The Sound of Clowns, Reservoir Clowns, Star Wars 7, Attack of the Clowns, The Clown of Oz, and many other great cinematic masterpieces. But fame and fortune weren't enough for Robbo. As the world moved towards World War at the end of the 30s and his acting career began to decline, Robbo shut himself away from the world in his villa called Xanadu. There, with a clone of Francis Farmer, he lived the life of a recluse and never spoke to anyone or ever went out. He was constantly plagued by manic depression, his evil arch-villain, who he battled constantly as the superhero jumpsuit man. Robbo preferred a good jumpsuit to wearing hospital scrubs when locked on psych wards, and also they were more comfortable in his life of crime fighting, and doing the whole superhero thing was very stressful, so he liked the fact that jumpsuits won't fall down around your ankles like scrubs will. But what tore him was his secret that he knew the world would never understand. Robbo was bigender. He felt strongly that he was lesbian brain, not that he was a woman trapped in a man's body, but a lesbian feeling quite at home in a man's body. How could he ever hope for the world to understand? And why weren't any lesbians interested in him at all? Robbo returned during this time once again to painting. In 1947, after years of self-imposed exile, Robbo moved to New York and began a collaboration with the action painters. It is said Robbo's genius inspired the entire abstract expressionist movement, and that Jackson Pollock stole all his ideas from Robbo. Sadly, a great conflagration at the Guggenheim Museum destroyed the entirety of Robbo's work. Almost 4 decades of artistic genius turned to ash in one night. Shortly after this, Andy Warhol took a great deal of pity on Robbo and stole a manifesto he had written about the dangers of postmodernism and how it would ultimately lead to the end of not only the realm of high art, but the civilization we live in as well. It was Robbo's belief that Neo-Dada would lead to an art project so overwhelmingly influential that modernism would not only die, it would cease to exist forever. Andy invited Robbo to join the factory, but Robbo declined. Robbo was heartbroken. He took to the road with an old beat-up acoustic on his back and a brakeman's handbook in his pocket. He spent some time with Jack Kerouac, but was not impressed by his poems. Robbo decided to write himself and soon became a prominent folk singer in the civil rights movement. But it was not enough for Robbo that the blacks alone win their rights. Robbo envisioned a world where everyone was equal, a world where you could be queer, gender fluid, transsexual, transgender, bisexual, asexual, Jew, honky, Negro, or Mexican, or even Irish. Some said Robbo's inclusion of the Irish was just going too far. Christ, they're Irish, for God's sake. But Robbo defended his platform by saying in a famous speech, Ich bin ein Irish. Some said this was a bit confusing because most of the statement was made in German and not Gaelic. The 60s began, and with the emergence of Bob Dylan and the Beatles, Robbo was fixated on rock and roll. While the Beatles turned to drugs and psychedelica, and Dylan turned electric, Robbo made the decision that radically changed his career. He began to play the banjo. The public took no notice. At this time, Robbo fled to Milan and decided to design men's clothes. He was responsible for creating the most original, utilitarian male wardrobe ever made. He called it the John Goodman Collection. Note that John Goodman was either only a baby or had never even been born at the time, but Robbo, being a master of clairvoyance and an adept sorcerer of the high occult had seen a vision of John Goodman's costume in the movie The Big Lebowski. Robbo created a line of Bermuda shorts and cargo vests that won instant recognition in fashion magazines and boutiques around Europe. Most popular of all were the conceal and carry vests he made secretly and privately for Interpol. But this was a mistake, for Robbo thought that the vests were for the 21st century alt-band Interpol and not the French Secret Service. Outraged, he closed his factory and stopped selling clothes for all time. Once again, Robbo seemed to be losing in the game of fame. Now sober for several years, Robbo was determined to succeed. He moved back to Xanadu, and in his home studio recorded the most androgynous and transgender recordings of all time. It is said that these recordings, now rare and hard to find, influenced the likes of Lou Reed, David Bowie, and Mark Bolan. But his influence as the intellectual genius that he was became so great that it remains undoubted that he was the very keystone to the music that followed for the rest of the 20th century. Pete Townsend has recently stated that both characters of Tommy and Quadrophenia were based on Robbo. It is clear that David Bowie sang about several stages of Robbo's life. Roger Waters has written that without the influence of Robbo, Syd Barrett would never have been able to burn out and fade away into complete insanity and legendary obscurity like that was original to start with. The album The Wall, Waters said, was completely about Robbo. Paul McCartney is almost certain that the Beatles were very influenced by Robbo, but says he can't really recall because of the millions of dollars of marijuana he has smoked since then. But, in the end, Robbo felt his masterpiece, Androgyne, would fall on deaf ears. He refused to release it to a world where it would be so misunderstood. He decided to only print 500 copies. Today, a copy of Androgyne, Robbo's monumental transgendered masterpiece, sells for $250,000 in mint condition. On May 9, 1973, Robbo disappeared. No one knows. WTF happened to him. It is suspected that he took the remainder of his wealth and moved to Japan. Other theories of his disappearance involve conspiracy theories as well as fictional problems with the IRS that are unfounded. Please enjoy this memorial Robbo page and note that at any time he may reappear to play music as Robbo, the sad clown of all things cross-dressing and transgendered at a local coffee house. One theory of the way he does this after logically being dead for so long is that he resides in a parallel universe and ever so often defies physics to visit our galaxy. But it is clear that wherever Robbo is, his vast and complex grasp of supernatural powers and his complex spiritual duality of angel and demon are very likely to mean that he is an immortal, a daywalker figure roaming the world alone throughout eternity. He never withers, he never fades. Some speculate that Robbo was responsible for the books of H.P. Lovecraft. As Bowie put it, it's clear that Robbo is the man who sold the world. He is the waylay brother who is made of wax, so he can scream and still relax. He's Star Trek in a leather jacket.